Hello and welcome to Find Your Freedom, a podcast dedicated to helping you truly find freedom in all aspects of life. Join your hosts and their expert guests as they share practical tips and strategies for finding more freedom in your life. It's time to take control of your life and create the future you want. Let's find your freedom. Here are your hosts, Lenny the Boss and Omid Rad Investor.
Boom, 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 boom. Man, we are back with another episode of Find Your Freedom. And before we jump into this fantastic guest we have today, you know that we have a freedom kit for you. It's absolutely free, easily downloadable. All you have to do is go to www.findyourfreedomrei.com/freedom kit. Once again, www.findyourfreedomrei.com/freedom kit. Listen, our next guest here is a good one today, right? He helped multifamily real estate investors, go from employee to CEO and create a life of freedom with meaningful contribution without even impacting your life, your happiness, or wrecking a relationship through the FP method. So we are super excited to find out about that. Faisal, how are you doing, man? How are you?
I am doing really good. I'm so excited for this call today. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Man, that's absolutely amazing. Hey, listen, we're really excited to have you today. So before we jump into, a few of your things, can you just give our audience a little bit about your background?
A little bit. I'll do the short version of this, and if you want to go into it, you can. The short version of this will be is that one of the reasons why I'm a high-performance coach and business coach, one of the reasons why I jumped into this world is because years ago, my early 20s, I got myself on all sorts of challenges, from alcohol addiction to drug addiction, depression for a number of years, and just kind of pulling myself out of that hole. It took a lot of effort. It took about close to 15 years of effort to get myself out of there. And then I got exposed to this beautiful process called coaching, and then took about 6 months to kind of rewire my whole brain, in a sense. Just given a different mind and a different experience of life that kind of pushed me to go on this, not push me, but pulled me to go on this path to support people, serve people, to create a life of freedom myself, for my family, for my community. And that's what led me here. And one of the reasons why I'm really passionate about it is that I asked this question about 6 months of going through that process. Why the hell wasn't this available to me about 15 years?
You're right.
Why did I have to go through all that? Well, of course, I don't regret that because I learned a lot through that process, connected to who I was. But I realized that a lot of people don't need to go through all that pain and suffering to be at a point where they can create a life worth living, a life of freedom, a life of connection, fulfillment, a life of purpose. Was that too long or short?
No, this is great. All right, so a little background. So Faisal and I, we met in LA at an event.
Let me do what you did.
Yeah, so we met, and he had a V-neck. So what I was like, I saw his chest hairs, and what a great icebreaker, but to kind of kind of pull on the hairs. So that was really.
So that was an amazing tactic. That was a tactic.
We call that we call that taco meat.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, that's it's funny because you go to events and you forget people, and that's just a great way. He will always remember me because I'm sure I'm sure nobody's ever probably done that to you.
So my mind, the way it works is hair, chest hair. Like those are the two things in my mind connect.
Oh, I love it. No, that's awesome. Yeah, so I want to get into like kind of some meat and potatoes, because I think what you're amazing at is really getting people to kind of dig deep and reflect on whatever experiences they've had, or even their intent and their goals. So just like when you're first working with somebody, and somebody, let's say they're getting started and they're excited, how do you hold them accountable? Because I think, in the beginning, somebody is so excited to like make self-improvements, and then they go back to kind of certain like habits or routines that they're like used to. But like, what would you say, like is a process, or how can people kind of break those sort of like bad habits?
Yeah, great question. One of the approaches that I take, first of all, we have to understand what accountability is, because a lot of the times the way we're taught, like since childhood, whenever we hear accountability, whenever we hear people talk about accountability in the news or anywhere, so we must keep these people accountable to what they did. What they're talking about is punishment. So
Yeah.
in our mind, whenever we hear accountability, that's not a good thing for us.
Right.
I don't know if you guys have watched this show Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's not accountable or responsible. They're sitting around, they're talking. It's like, I don't know why this person doesn't think I'm responsible. And Simon's like, why do you want to be responsible? Whenever something goes wrong, they look for people who are responsible.
That's so true.
That is right. 100% on point.
So first of all, we don't realize this. It's not in our conscious thought process. A lot of people, when they think of accountability, they think of some very negative consequences and something that will be put on them. But when I think of accountability, what I usually go towards with my clients is to help them develop a system within themselves that allows them to show up as and I'll use the term accountable. Well, what I mean by that is that they're owning their life. They're not relying on everybody else to give them what they need. They're not relying on other people to make them feel good or feel amazing about their life. They're owning their life. They're owning their habits. They're owning their thoughts, their emotions. They're owning their own actions. And if they can do that consistently for a period of time, then nobody else needs to keep them accountable. It's good to have your social environment. I think it's very helpful to have other people around you. I think it's even necessary to have that, but not in a way to punish you, but in a way to encourage you, to support you. But if you're not even open to it from that angle, then you're going to look at it as a punishment. Like it's one of the weirdest things. That when I used to ask this a lot, of like, who can keep you accountable? And I had to keep reframing. I'm like, oh, when I say accountable, they hear punishment. They don't hear ownership. So I had to keep reframing that. And the way we do that is, like Omid said, we go through certain key areas. So we help them. I follow a process, high performance model, which is based on a lot of research. At least at the top level, there are other models that I go through. We help I help my clients develop clarity about who they are and what their life is about. Whether that's their vision, their sense of purpose, and their sense of identity, they need to become very clear about that. It's not enough when people say, "Well, I want freedom." Because what they've heard is that when they hear, for example, real estate investor or people who are teaching a lot about freedom and all these things, what they hear is this. I think it's this 3 statements. I hear a lot from my clients. Like, I want to ask them, well, what does freedom mean to you? Well, I want to do what I want when I want to do it with whoever I want to do it. And I know that some influencers on top repeat that and they just repeat it in their head. That doesn't mean shit all for you inside of you. I apologize. I didn't know. You guys,
yeah, no, you're good. You're good. Keep it rolling, baby.
Tell me
Keep
more.
It
Tell me more. Tell me more.
So you have the surface version of what freedom looks like in their life, and that's not enough to jump in and create a life worth living. Whether that's based on financial freedom, but I look at freedom much broader. So if you don't have that clarity piece in place, it's not worth it for your mind to put all the effort to create the habits, to create all the consistency that you need to do it. Because as soon as you get excited and motivated, you show up, you go 1 day, 2 day, a week after that conference that you go to. About a week or 2 later, you're going to go back to your old habits, because your mind it finds the most efficient ways to move forward, and you've just trained it to be a certain way. Now, for you to train it to learn a completely different way of showing up, a different way of thinking, emotions, and behavior, that requires a complete restructuring of how you're looking at the future. That requires clarity. So we go through clarity, then we go into their energy. How can we help them raise their mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual energy? Then we go into productivity. How can they become, I'm doing a training today, how can they get out of a lot of busy work and focus on the things that are effective? Those are like 10-20% of the things that you focus on to move your business and life forward. And then we go into courage. Well, what are the fears that are holding you back? What does it mean for you to show up with courage? because most of what entrepreneurs are going to do is going to involve courage. It doesn't take a lot of intellect to build a business. It takes a lot of courage to build a business. And then we go towards influence. How can you develop the right relationships? How can you partner with the right people? How can you develop long-term relationships that help support your progress? Because you're a human being. We're a social species. We don't operate alone. We're more like wolves than we are like tigers. Tigers operate alone most of the year, and then they find a mate, they do it, and move on. Wolves rely on each other for survival. They do it. Do it more a little bit differently. Wolves rely on each other for survival, and we're a social species. A lot of our identity comes from other people. So if you don't have influence pat down in your home and your business and all parts of your life, then you're going to struggle a lot. And that tends to be the challenging piece for a lot of people. Now, there's a lot more in there, but that's just, if we can hit those foundations, a lot of other things take care of themselves.
Awesome. I really love all that. And one of the things I really enjoy you saying is owning, your life is keeping you accountable. I really, really, really love that because, for me personally, I do something called a clarity walk, right? And I go out every single day. And when I do, I go out and make sure these are the key elements that need to be under your clarity walk. My cell phone is off, right? So I get no text messages, I get no emails, I get no phone numbers. I can't text, I can't send emails, no notifications of social media. I go outside, I walk. The only thing I'm thinking about is nature, which is the sounds of nature, the cars, people walking up and down the street. And I get to think about what I want to think about, right? And I don't have to worry about someone putting, their issues or their problems onto me. And I call it clarity walk because it allows me to get very clear on what I need to accomplish and come back and be able to implement that. But let me ask you a question, because a lot of people start their day, right, a certain way. For me, I like to wake up, I like to, read the Bible, I like to exercise, I like to go for, my clarity walk and a few other things. What do you have for people, or what would you suggest for people on what's the first things that they should do when they get up in the morning?
I would not presume to tell people what to do with their morning, but I will. That is up to them what they want to do. In the words of Tony Robbins, I'm not going to shit on people. So, but what I will help them think a little bit about this because many high performers and investors, they've read this book, The Miracle Morning, and it kind of gives you a framework, but people tend to take it a little bit too seriously. It goes from suggestion to I'm going to stick to this for the rest of the year. I'm not going to do anything else. If you can stick to a miracle morning routine every day for 300 and something days per year, I'll just share this. You have a very boring life.
Boom.
Yeah. Because life has a tendency to be like that. So for I'll tell you, like I have a certain routine for a couple of months, and then an event comes up. I'm gone. I'm speaking there, or I'm attending, or something's going on. I'm gone for a week. I can keep parts of my routine, but a lot of it is thrown off. After that, I come back. I go back to my routine, and then something else happened. We go travel, or we go stay somewhere else for a month. Routine thrown off. It's not the same. So assuming you want to have an interesting life, a life that's worth living, your routine's going to vary a little bit, but there are some foundational areas to think about. First of all, morning routine doesn't start with morning. It actually starts the night before. And this is a distinction a lot of us don't get because, if, for example, if you go to bed late, you can force yourself to wake up, but you don't have enough sleep. You're just already starting with the deficit. You are tired, exhausted, so you could do meditation or other things which kind of get you up to date, but it's going to affect you negatively. So one of the things that I get my clients to think about is, okay, what's happening the night before? How are you going to sleep? What is your routine there? Because that determines what happens the next morning. Because if you're going to bed on time, if you kind of have a wind down routine in a sense where you're kind of making sense of your day, you're reflecting on it, what went well, what didn't go well, what can you then you wake up in a better state. But if you're kind of plopping on bed, taking whatever thoughts and emotions that you had throughout the day, more likely you're waking up with this series of similar thoughts and emotions. And now you have about the next half an hour or so, you're struggling with that. So it actually starts the night before, but it even starts before that. And this is why I talk about clarity, is that your morning routine depends on what you're trying to do. What are you trying to create? And if somebody's trying to create a conscious life, you need time for yourself. I love what you said with your clarity walk. You need time to process your own thoughts and emotions, whatever form that takes. I never tell people do it this way or another, because there are different ways people process things. So for somebody, exercise might be their meditation. For somebody else, they might need a little bit extra time to spend time with themselves on a morning walk, or just sit in a typical meditation pose, or do some kind of reflection journaling or something like that. It depends. So it doesn't work for everybody. And this is what I want to kind of hint, is that there's no cookie cutter process for human beings, for the reason that you're a unique human being. Now, most people who write books and do trainings, they kind of take the general statistical thing into account. They give you a general guideline. But if you take that and you apply it exactly in your life, you will find that you will struggle. And the thing that is supposed to help you, it's going to make you struggle more, because it's not attuned to you. So whatever you pick, experiment with it, try it. So some key things to think about is have time to process your thoughts, emotions, move, have some kind of movement, whether that looks like yoga, exercise, gym, whatever it's or martial arts, whatever your thing is. But you need movement in your day, a little bit of movement. It doesn't have to be 2 hours of it. It could be like 20 minutes of it in the morning, just to get your body moving. Time to look, having, and this is where it's hard to explain this, having some kind of system. What the hell are you doing for the week, for the month? And if you don't know your long-term picture, it's very hard to know what you're doing for the day, for the week, for the month. If you don't have a productivity system and you're waking up trying to figure out, what am I going to do today? You've already kind of thrown yourself backwards. So what I recommend is for people to go through a strategic process to build that. So if you don't have that process, I can share that with you guys. I've developed a vision building process and a strategic goal setting process that can help you develop that over the next 10 years. You can plan out the next 10 years. A lot of people might think that's not possible. Yes, things change, but it's a very dynamic process. When you have that, you know what you're doing every day that you're waking up. You do need to pivot, you do need to adjust, but you generally know. So you're not wasting time trying to plan every day. You're actually just looking at, hey, this is my plan of action for the week. What are the things that I need to refine? What are the appointments that I need to move? Where are my block times that I'm going to focus on doing effective work versus busy work? So if you can just take care of those 2-3 things, space for yourself to process things, move your body, and have a plan of action, you're generally set up to move forward in a positive way in your week. There are other things in there, but those 3 things will be helpful.
So yeah, so I want to touch on that. I think that's pretty awesome. Like, how you kind of break it down, and you talked about clarity, clarity being such a big piece, and even kind of like the foundation where you can kind of see what it is that you want to do, and that a lot of times people have kind of like this superficial sort of or like generic type of clarity component that they're working towards. The system seems to be like what people struggle with, like creating the system for productivity. So I know you talked about reflecting, like the movement, and then, but can we break down the system? Because I feel like life happens, something happened, and I can't get to it, and so how do we, I guess, develop that system for, I guess, productivity?
Yeah. So one thing I want to shift here. So a lot of what I'm saying, it all depends on the person, and I'm going to keep stressing on that, is because we've sort of been trained in this way of thinking since childhood. Like, we're thrown in this school system that kind of looks at us as the same exact way as every other person, and we're given the same exact education. Same thing applies to all of us. But we know that it's like what is Einstein's quote that he says? Like, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it's going to spend its whole life thinking that it's incapable or And so when you actually talk to people in my profession, one of the things that I'm privileged to do is and psychologists will say the same thing. Anybody who talks to people at a deeper level, as soon as you go past a certain level of surface, you'll find that people are so odd. They're so they're so odd. They're so amazing. You have so many weird thoughts about the world, but they
Yeah.
kind of keep it to themselves because they don't want
Yeah.
to be hurt. They don't want to show that side of themselves. But so there are some things that are
Weirdos.
like, we're all weirdos in our own ways, right? We share. So what do we do? Like, we're like, think about how we grew up. Like, we grew up, like, we say some things to, like, when we, especially when we learn to speak, right? When we learn to speak in the beginning, we sound very funny to our parents and other people around us. But after a while, when we get a grip on it, it becomes annoying to the people around us. So we might say something, they're like, don't talk like that. Or we might say something else, oh, that's funny, that's great. So we kind of our mind kind of makes these mental notes subconsciously. Oh, okay, I'll share more of that. I'll keep this to myself because that was painful. So this is how we've been trained to think. So that means that most people keep a lot of amazing things underneath the surface, and it's not that they know that they don't wanna. They know that they don't share it. They don't even remember it a lot of times. So this is why I love the process of coaching, is that as you start to kind of dialogue, and when clients feel a little bit safe, they start to share the weird things. And within those weird things, some things are pretty ridiculous. Some things are incredibly amazing that they've never acknowledged it to themselves or to anybody. They will have ideas. They will have insights from their own life. They'll have ways of approaching things that they've never shared with anybody else. A lot of times not even to themselves. And so within that, as you kind of do that discovery process, they start to discover themselves. Oh, I've kind of put aside this part of myself. And they don't know why. And a lot of it is usually due to backlash in the environment. And they don't even remember it most of the time. And so that's why a lot of this stuff I'm going to sort of share is that, hey, it's a general guideline, but you need to do your own work. And that's why I love coaching, is because it's very customized. It gets you to think about your own life, not somebody else's life. And so having said that, so this is how a system works. So we all understand system in business, for example. So systems in business, such as you're tracking your marketing efforts, or you're tracking your sales efforts. You have a sheet for your sales calls. It goes on CRM, or you have a sheet, or you have a CRM that tracks your leads and other things. For human beings, the way that system works is, first of all, that CRM or that sheet that you're looking at, somebody had to think through and develop that, right? It didn't just we just take it, but somebody had to spend a lot of time thinking through and developing that. For human beings, the beginning of that is, again, they need to understand what they're actually really creating and what really matters to them. If they don't understand those foundational building blocks of what matters to them in terms of their identity, their relationships, who they are, who do they want to be, how do they want to interact with the world, what kind of impact do they want to create, if at all, what does their idea of freedom look like, and how do they want to consistently grow towards that. If they don't understand those clarity points, there is no system. I can literally hand you a sheet to track everything. It will not mean anything. This is why a lot of people will download like all these apps and stuff. Let me track. Like, Mike, this is a funny thing. Your clients will, Mike, you guys will appreciate this. So somebody will come in as a client. They will send me sheets after sheets after sheets of tracking data. I'm looking at this. I'm getting a headache myself. Usually, and I'll read part of it, and then I'll get on a call with them. I'm like, thank you for sending that. Is that actually helping you? They're like, no. So that was pointless. Let's put that aside. Let's figure out who you are, first of all, deep down, and then we need to just track very simply. The easiest way to track is, first of all, create that clarity around who you're becoming, then create a long-term plan. A long-term plan outside is, what are you going to be focused on in terms of your growth? What are you going to be focused on in terms of your business? And when I say growth, I mean your personal, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual growth. I wouldn't even put business second. So this first is growth. The second one is relationships. What kind of relationships do you want around you, with your family, with your peers, with your colleagues, team members, with your clients. Like, you need to explore every aspect of that. What kind of people do you want to be around? So that needs to be part of your planning. That cannot be disconnected. And the third one is your business. So you need to plan out your life. Think about that vision and put it on a long, like a big board or a Trello thing, if you want to do it digitally. That, hey, this is what I'm going to focus on in these categories in all parts of my life, in terms of my growth, relationships, and business. This year, I'm going to be focused on this. This year, I'm going to be focused on this. This year, and you're going to get more and more vague as you move outwards after 3 years. That's okay, but you still have a general plan to go towards it. And then you're breaking that down for the first year, especially the first year, but you can even do that for the next year. You're breaking that down. Okay, if this is going to be my focus, what am I going to do this quarter? What am I going to do next quarter? What am I going to do the quarter afterwards? And then you're going to break that down to monthly. You're going to break that down. If you cannot do that, then you're pretty much picking up random things to do in your life, and you're hoping that it will translate to something that in your mind vaguely means freedom. Your mind doesn't know how to create that. You need to give it a structure. And there's a long process that needs to happen here. So this will take you on average, just to get started, about a couple hours, and then refining it every week for the next few months. And once you have it clear enough, you can revisit it every quarter, and then now you're aligned. Now, so two things happen. When some new shiny thing comes up, you check with your vision and long-term plan. Does this make sense based on what I want? If it doesn't, you say, thank you, this is amazing, but this is my path. If some new path, and this is like a lot of people who are creative and they're capable, they go towards too many different directions. Their energy gets distracted, and they don't know how to get focused and move forward towards one path that's going to give them exponential growth. And that requires a plan. That requires a lot of exploration. That requires you to check in with that plan. This is another quote by Brendon Burchard. He said there's like, most people look at other people's Instagram more than they look at their own goals. And then they wonder why they don't achieve their goals.
Boom. There you go. Listen to you. I mean, that was a mic drop moment right there, right?
When I heard that, I was like, all right, drop the mic, Brendon.
Yeah. So I love this, right? So you talk about long-term plan. You talk about a few different things within it. You talk about growth. You talk about relationships. You talk about business, and you say, hey, you need to, that's the ending result, and you need to work backwards. A quarter, right? Monthly, daily, the things that you need to do. Now, a lot of people tend to sit there and say, oh my God, look at all these things you want me to work on. This is so much. I don't have this time. I'm married. I have a job. I have 15 kids. Ones I have in, the kids I take care of up the street, take them to the park and all that good stuff. So which one you think a person should focus on first? Is it growth? Is it relationship? Is this business? And I get it. Everything is different per person. But if we would just take a kind of more of like a generic type of perspective, which direction would you head them in and why?
So that's why I put it in that, like, that's the priority. Like, your growth is your priority. So when I say growth, it's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. For example, if something happens in your life on a day-to-day basis, if you got 15 kids, you're likely dealing with a lot of shit. If you have work or business, you're dealing with a lot of stuff. Life happens every day. Unfortunately, life does not stop for us to kind of let me. I'll come back to you. Like, it's gonna keep throwing shit at you. And this is why, like, one of my favorite people on this is that a lot of people try to make their life easier. Even those who are kind of trying to seek freedom, they're hoping for an easier life. That's not what actually happens in reality. As you develop more, for example, as you develop a better business or businesses, even if you're thinking from a cash flow perspective, you develop passive cash flow. You're still responsible for a lot of things. You're running a business. You're responsible for, let's say, in the real estate world, if you have on the multifamily side or on whatever, You have a team everywhere. You have your family. You have all sorts of stuff that you're dealing with. If you wake up every morning and you go into your email, first of all, don't go into your email in the morning. A lot of people do this.
So that's a routine that they shouldn't do, right?
This is actually documented, so there's research behind it. If you first thing you check your email, one of the first things that you do, or you go into your email, you've lost about 35% of productivity for the day, like just right off the bat, because your email, as other people trying to reach out to you to get you to do things for them, has nothing to do with based on your agenda. It has to do with that. There's a whole other process of all that. But let's say if you're waking up, you look at your email or you look at your messages. Oh shit, I didn't do this, and then now you're already in reaction mode. And then the next thing, by the time you hit like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, you're already gone. Like there is no planning process. You've lost sight of your own thoughts and emotions. You have lost ownership. So that's why I say growth is the most important thing. If you don't feel like you're in charge of your own thoughts and emotions and your spiritual life and your physicality, then a lot of other things are not going to matter, because you're going to react to the people around you. You're going to react to the challenges in business and economy and news and other people. And what happens is, when I say reactions, there's a technical thing in there. Our body goes into defensive mode, which we call fight, flight, freeze response, which means that you're actually not using your thinking mind. And technically you're using your hindbrain, which is a very fast part of our mind that reacts to things that could potentially harm us. Your mind is always trying to protect you from the things that could potentially harm you. If your mind is always engaging that hindbrain and you're not engaging your prefrontal cortex, you're not consciously thinking about things, you're not analyzing, you're not designing, you're not moving forward, you're not connecting with people, there is no life for you to create. You're just defending yourself. You're like, people are throwing things at you and you're just like, oh, okay, let me protect myself. So that's why growth becomes one of the most important areas to focus on. And after that, other areas you can deal with.
So I think that's interesting, because I imagine most people are always like in that fight or flight, especially like if they're parents and they're balancing the job, and then they get home and they're just tired. And I always hear I don't want to do anything else. I'm too tired. This is all I'm going to do. I'm just going to go veg out. I imagine the average person, like, or the average, let's say, parent, that's kind of the mentality where they don't want to do anything more. So speaking to them, like, how would you incorporate kind of growth within, like, or how would you time block, or how much would you allot in order to kind of make that a priority when maybe a lot of people don't?
I would say start with what we talked about in the beginning, is that have some kind of evening routine and morning routine. Even if you take out like an hour at night to reflect over your day, like, hey, this is what happened throughout the day. Here are the areas I reacted with. Here's what I could improve the next day. And then the next day when you're waking up, you give yourself an hour to reflect. Okay, like, even if I don't have a long-term plan, what would help me move forward? What do I need to do? Do I need to, like, if you look at the mirror and you're like, I don't want to look at this person, that's the place to change. If you look at your relationships and they're broken, you need to pay attention to that. If you look at your thought and you're in anxiety mode, take some time out in those hours. Like, take 10 minutes, go for a walk, go exercise. Exercise is probably one of the best things for helping you deal with stress and depression and all sorts of things. Take some time to reflect. Like, even just if you can do that consistently, just those two things. And it's very hard for people to do that. Even if you fall off, let's say something happens in your life. You did that for 7 days or 10 days, and then something happened. You went off course for a few days or a week. Go back to it. Keep going back to it. Because if you can create a general, let's say out of 360 something days, you did it for 100 days or 50 days. That will put you ahead. Now your mind is starting to think. Now you're starting to analyze things. You pay attention to things you were not paying attention. You have the energy to deal with your challenges. You're paying attention to the things that you need to deal with. Like, that will give you a head start, more than a lot of other things. Like, hey, give yourself the space to process. Because if you can't do that, you cannot be there for your family. You cannot build a business. You cannot sustain it. If you do build a business, you're going to create another job for yourself, which you don't want to do. what you want to create is ideally is a life that matters to you, and that's not going to happen with being in reaction.
Wow. I mean, I'm sitting here at all. I mean, I really love this stuff, the hour at night kind of to wind down and see what happened during the day, right? Get yourself together for tomorrow. I always tell my son, and he's 10, and we're working on that. I tell him, hey, do as simple as just as a habit I want him to build. Take your clothes out for tomorrow. So that's the habit that we're building, which is going to, as he mature, going to go into other things, right? Because he's already into that habit. And I also love what you mentioned earlier, just about, hey, you want to make sure you're able to take care of the things you need to take care of and not be in this reaction type of a manner. So you need to make sure you're not reading, any of those emails or those text messages or anything like that. And I wanted to re-echo those things because like those little things is what's so important to make sure you get ahead because look, everybody's agenda is full. And if you can't get to your agenda because you always on someone else, the way you get the happiness is by progressing and you're not progressing, but hey, let's ask you a question. What does find your freedom mean to you?
I love that question because it took me a while and I'm still in the discovery of that. But at this point, I used to think that freedom was, if I have enough money and time, that's freedom. And then I worked with a lot of people who had those things. They didn't have freedom. They were completely disconnected inside. They were completely miserable. They didn't have connections around them. They didn't have a sense of purpose. So for me, freedom has two components. There's your external freedom. Yes, your time, your space, your ability to do things externally, your ability to move, your ability to do the things that you want with your time, to do the things that matter to you. That's part of freedom, one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is your internal sense of freedom. Because if you have all the time in the world, you have all the space in the world, you have the freedom to go wherever you want, you can be with anybody you want. But you do that, and it's like the biggest, I think, tragedy. You do that and you get there, you're like, I hate my life. That is much worse than, because now you just did that thing and you got there like, oh shit, what do I do now? Because now, and that has to do with our own internal alignment. That has to do with your thoughts, emotions, your own behavior, your own spiritual life. Is who are you at your core? What is your sense of purpose? What matters to you deep down? If you don't understand those things, it doesn't matter what you get externally, you will be miserable. And I've gone through that process, and you don't want to be there. And so freedom has those two components. If you're taking care of it, and so a lot of people, what they do is this: they like on the internal one, I'll go do the external, and then I'll come back to it. That's even harder process to do that. So what I encourage people to do, and that's what I do myself, is that concurrently work on both sides. That's why your personal growth is important. Work on your business, but work on your personal growth. Work on your other stuff, but work on your relationship as well. Work on your external things, work on your spiritual life as well, whatever that means to you. Because you will build a little bit slower in the beginning compared to other people, but you're going to exponentially go up at some point when you hit enough critical mass. And that's where most people won't be able to catch up with you, and it doesn't matter if they do or not, but you will see that you are showing up authentically, very different. You have a life that's unique to you. It doesn't matter what other people around you are doing. You will be in alignment. You will not care about what's happening around you. What you will care about is, okay, what matters to me long-term, short-term, what matters to me in terms of the contributions, my relationships, who I am deep down. And I would say that's a deeper sense of freedom that many people don't go towards.
Yeah, that was powerful. That was great. I like the internal external answer. I don't think we've ever had anybody actually answer this way. So that was very deep. So yeah, that I appreciate that. So let's say I'm inspired. I just listened to your episode, and maybe I can't find you at a local event to pull your chest hairs. Where do I find you?
You will find me somewhere to pull my chest. So you can go to my website, faisalensaun.com. it'll give you some information around how you can connect with me. I do have a course there. I sell it for $47, but if any of your viewers want access to that, they can actually message me on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. I'll give them that course for free. Just send me a message, send your email, and I'll give you a code, and you can have it for free. Otherwise, you can go to my website. You will see it. It has like 6+ hours of very actionable content. A lot of what we talked about, I put it in that course to help you develop that vision, the strategic plan, and help you think about some of the key areas to move forward a little bit faster, get a head start. Or if you feel like you're stuck somewhere and you feel plateaued, or you feel like you don't know how to move forward, or you see yourself this thing taking a lot longer, go to my website, book a free call. It's a 30-minute call. That if we feel aligned, I can help you move through that much faster, or I'll get you connected with somebody who can. If you can see the shirt, I'm actually doing a masterclass. I also have another company where we help train other coaches as well. So coaching means a lot to me generally. I don't know if you can read it, but coaching changes everything. And so I'm very well connected to the coaching world. So if it's not me that can support you, I'll get you connected to somebody who will be able to support you. But don't do it alone. Because one, it's a lot more fun to work with somebody and move through it. Second, once you understand the world of business, once you understand the world of abundance, you see that nobody does it alone. They might appear like they're doing it alone. Nobody does it alone. That was my biggest breakthrough in business, where I'm like, why the hell is this person on stage alone? That's not, like, it's elusive.
So true.
But in the background, they have a whole team, not just team in business, but they have coaches, they have mentors, they have accountants, they have lawyers, they have team members, they have colleagues. They have so many people that are supporting them at every front. But on the front end, the way they talk about it, it looks like they've made it all alone. Bullshit, don't buy it.
You can say that again, right? No one makes it all alone. Even Michael Jordan has a coach, right? Listen, so what we like to do at the end of our show, we like to have this boom session. And the whole premise behind it is to bust out some speakers, to interrupt some eardrums here. So how we do this is I'm going to count to 3, 1, 2, 3, and then in a uniform manner after 3, all 3 of us going to say boom as loud as we can. Are y'all guys ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. All right, 1, 2, 3. Boom! Awesome. Listen, check this out. This is the things that we do here on our show. You have the opportunity. All you have to do is listen, email, and you'll get free access to a course. And we thank you for that. Clarity is the number one thing that you need to sit here and take yourself from A to B to C to Z. Always remember that. And with that being said, we also have a freedom kit for you. It's free, absolutely downloadable. All you have to do is go to findyourfreedom.rei.com/freedom kit. Once again, findyourfreedom.rei.com/freedom kit. Now, this episode was great, and I know it was, but we need some help from you. We want you to take a listen to this episode and leave us an honest 5-star review. That's the way that we continue to give you more and more and more. And also, don't forget to share, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to send this link to all your friends at work, all the ones you like and the ones that you don't. Until the next episode of Find Your Freedom, we talk to you soon. Peace.
Thanks for listening to Find Your Freedom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're at it, please help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review and sharing the podcast with friends, family, and colleagues. Until next time, get out there and find your freedom.